So I'm going to play this clip real quick so you can see it before we get into discussing this video.
Okay.
Or this event.
Today at a Detroit tiny home as bailiffs tried to evict a woman who refused to leave. The saga between Tara Brown and Cass Community Social Services has been playing out for months, and today the situation finally came to a head. Victor Williams was there as things turned violent. Victor.
Yeah, Kimberly, talk about an intense situation. You had dozens of protesters that were refusing to let this woman be evicted, but at the same time you had court officers refusing to let her stay.
We're going in, you're in the way.
Things turned chaotic between protesters and court officers during an eviction on Detroit's west side, with a few dozen officers from DPD watching on.
The bailiffs, actually, they've been roughing up people who've been defending Tara's house.
Tara Brown is the one being put out of her tiny home through a court-ordered eviction. She claims it's all because she spoke out against her landlord, Reverend Fowler, with Cass Community Social Services, better known as CCSS.
This is what a home defense looks like, and this is what landlords can expect when they go to retaliate against tenants and throw them out. This is a lie. She told people that she was giving us tiny houses.
Protesters from multiple organizations, including Detroit Eviction Defense, have taken it on themselves to make sure Tara stays in her home. And although all of her belongings were taken out, some protesters are refusing to accept that even now.
We need to keep people in their homes right now. There is no housing available for people in Detroit.
Feeling confident about fighting back, and we're not done. We're just getting started.
Now, in response, Reverend Fowler sent us the following statement, which reads, CCSS tried to exercise extreme care to avoid the emotional event that took place at the tiny homes this morning. We never condone violence and planned with the courts, law enforcement, and additional parties to make sure people, Ms. Brown, the protesters, the bailiffs, police, neighbors, staff, and onlookers would not be injured or arrested. Conversely, Ms. Brown and the outside group have been announcing for weeks that she would not vacate the home and that they plan to use any means necessary to avoid the court-ordered eviction. And that's exactly what we're seeing playing out with many of these protesters right back here in front of the home. Victor Williams, Local 4.
All right, Victor.
Okay, so that's great, but why is she being evicted? Did she not pay for something? Has she been basically squatting in the place?
That's not the point.
That is the point.
No, the guy that looked like Scrooge McDuck, he said there's no housing. People need to stay in their houses.
That's great.
You can't evict them.
But you can evict
No, you
people
can't.
if they're not paying.
It's a tiny house. And even she said it. She says they lied.
She didn't say that they lied about her not paying her bill or anything like that.
But she said you know, they're giving houses away. The little barricade on the street said eviction free zone.
Well, did they put that barricade up? Who put the barricade up? Because this is one of those things where you got the video, but where's the fact that leads up to what happened? Where's
here's
the information that leads up to it?
Here's a fact, okay? You want the cold, hard truth? Mm-hmm. And the truth is that very few people are going to actually ask those questions and get the answers, or at least do their own research. They're going to immediately assume, pass judgment. They're going to stand here arm in arm barricading against a particular cause or justification, all because they read a title and a thumbnail and they didn't actually watch the video.
Now, here's what's interesting with that. I could not tell. Was it the court people who were on the steps barricading them from getting in?
The people on the steps were a group of people trying to prevent the court bailiffs to enter into the property. They were trying to build this human wall, this shield.
So then the people in the lawn who were aggressive and angry and stuff, those are supposedly the court bailiffs? Because it didn't make sense how the two sides were fighting, because it would seem to me the ones on the steps that all looked more presentable. I don't know if that's the right word here, but from what I could see from where I'm sitting, because I have
honestly, I can't tell who's who.
It seems to me that the ones who want her to stay there were the ones that were in the yard, versus the ones who want her out were the ones on the steps.
All right. Well, let me provide you with a little bit more clarity from the Detroit News. And this was released April 4th, 2023. Detroit bailiffs break through blockade to evict tiny home resident. Tara Tara Brown got evicted Tuesday from her tiny home, a prospect that she has faced for more than 2 years. But she didn't leave without a fight and a lineup of activists trying to defend her.
Now, so you're telling me that for 2 years, she has been in eviction area, and finally the court was like, listen, you have to go, and they did what they would have done.
Approved it.
Yes.
Legally, the court approved it, authorized the eviction. This has been 2 years now. But things get a little bit interesting as we go into this because housing is expensive.
It's expensive everywhere.
The housing market is unbelievable. Prices are high. And just because it's a tiny house or a tiny home
doesn't mean it's affordable.
No, God, no.
Not at all.
Even when tiny houses were getting real popular, they were crazy expensive. Like they were like over $100 a square foot. More than that, considering how big they were actually. And everybody's like, oh, well, this is going to save money because it's a tiny house. No, it's still got awful expensive. And then you got to have somewhere to put it, where a lot of municipalities were not allowing people to have permits to actually place their tiny homes or trailer their tiny homes onto their property. And that was an issue too.
Yep.
But just because it says tiny house doesn't mean it's affordable. But it says that bailiffs and the 36th District Court representatives arrived at Brown's tiny home on Monterey Street at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, but were blocked by about 30 people with Detroit Eviction Defense, an activist coalition that comprises attorneys, trade unionists, and rental tenants who argue she's being unjustly ousted. The group of 30 people linked arms to create a human wall as bailiffs attempted to break through and get into the home. So
why unjustly? Where is the information? Because here's my thoughts. If this was a tiny house community that was meant to help veterans, or because they said the word veteran in there, so I don't know if she is a veteran, but if it's meant to help veterans who are below this income level or who are having these maybe post-injury things done. Well, if she's now above that income level and the injury stuff is over at this point in time, she should leave so somebody else can have that place.
Bailiffs broke through the activists, grabbing their shoulders, shouting, and attempting to jump on top of them from behind. One bailiff successfully kicked through the door at the back of the home, and videos of the incident show police intervening to hold protesters back. Some demonstrators were tackled and punched, while others were pushed to the ground. Several people had their shirt collars ripped from being held back from the violent clash.
Now, I will say the really crappy side in all of this is that the bailiffs, if they were the ones to put hands on people and the protesters did not fight back or anything else, the bailiffs will not get in trouble because they are court ordered.
I mean, bailiffs, yes, they're court ordered.
They're allowed to put their hands on, which
officers to a degree,
yeah.
And
that's where it gets a little messed up. If they are the ones going in there aggressively and the other ones are peaceful, not moving hands, not doing anything like that.
Well, this is our legal system. So even if a police officer is in the wrong, you can't physically assault them to prove you're right. Okay. Someone began screaming, "Get off of him. He can't breathe." And women could be heard screaming, "Don't touch her." Well, obviously, we know why they said that.
Yes, George Floyd.
Brown was escorted out of the home unwillingly. The resident, who has kidney disease and receives dialysis twice a week, took her dialysis machines and bags that she had packed with her. Then, around noon, a crew hauling a dumpster arrived and began emptying her home. Brown said moments after that she was kicked out by the bailiff, "We're not scared. We're not intimidated. And I told him I wasn't leaving, and I mean it. We're going to have some problems. This is fraud to tell the public that you're going to give someone an opportunity and not follow through. It's disappointing and distressing. I'm uncomfortable, but not broken."
Here's my question. How long do you need an opportunity? If this has been going on for 2 years of trying to evict her, that means that she was in there for some time before that, before an eviction began. It's not like they started eviction before they moved her in. So how long has she had to find her opportunity to do the things that she needed to do to get into a place where she didn't need to be in that housing?
Who did I tell the other day? Oh, it was Jess from PB&J? She was an attorney. She was working pretty much, out of pocket.
Pro bono.
And helping people in situations that needed legal counsel, but really couldn't afford it. And when she would win the cases, they would then argue with her about how much they owed her, ultimately not paying her. And at that time, I had to remind her of a unfortunate saying that I was told years ago, and it's true.
Money changes people?
Yeah. But no good deed goes unpunished.
Yes.
Now, ironically, the photo that they chose to use here showing Miss Brown standing on her porch of her home that she was evicted from, they've mentioned a dialysis machine, but I see snacks and candy in the background. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Now, the downside is they said they brought a dumpster to start throwing her stuff out. And so she's going to, of course, be upset that they've gone in and touched her things. But once that property is taken from you, the things inside that property are also no longer yours. And I try to tell people that or remind people of that on my channel. Like if eminent domain comes through and they decide to take your land and you want to fight it or whatever else, the second they get you out, everything that's there is theirs. So you need to get all your belongings out of your home too.
Interesting you say that. Because as a prepper, you're going to have a stockpile,
Yep.
more than likely, of a variety of different food and supplies, probably some physical hard assets, some gold, some silver, some junk silver, whatever
Some
it may
extra
be.
freezers, extra refrigerators.
Somebody left a comment, a ridiculously ignorant comment, and it said, you fake preppers, you guys, y'all are just LARPing. You have no idea what's going on. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, when I say prep and when I say stock up, I'm not talking about chickens. I'm not talking about rice and beans. I'm not talking about MREs. I'm telling you guys to prepare for the financial burden, the financial shit show, the economic collapse that is coming for so many. And it's not about chickens. It's not about growing your own food, because Miss Brown was not going to win this appeal with chickens. And if evicted, where is she going to go with these chickens? Okay. So when I say prep and when I say stock up, please know I am not talking about the traditional form that has come to pass of this doomsday prepper scenario, because prepping is short for preparation or preparing. When you go into a kitchen at a restaurant, if you're a Michelin chef, what are you going to do before you start cooking?
Meal prep.
You're going to prep. If you're Bradley Martin and you're a bodybuilder, what are you going to do? You're going to meal prep. If you are a auto body, car, truck painter, what's the most important part to get your best paint job out of a vehicle?
Prep the base.
The prep. Okay. So prep
Goes for everything.
It's about getting ready. Okay. So when I say it, I'm not talking about the traditional sense that everybody's kind of come to, think about, or, only think about, because it is quite possibly the easier one to really have at the forefront of your mind. But if you're not preparing financially, this is it. Brown appealed her eviction notice on Wayne County Circuit Court, or to Wayne County Circuit Court, and was denied in October, said the 36th District Court Chief Judge William McCanico. So since October till April, so November, December. So she had 6-7 months.
They gave her a very long time to figure out how to leave a premises she was no longer supposed to be on.
The court, according to McCanico, is sympathetic to all parties involved, and it is unfortunate when an individual is evicted. But the role of the court is to follow and enforce the laws of the state.
So you can't be mad at the court, unfortunately. Even I, the emotional one in literally every situation, can get mad at things that happen and whatever else. But at the end of the day, it is still not the court's fault for doing what they are legally required to do.
And while the court respects the right of these individuals to protest, we do not condone violence. These court officers possessed a lawful court order to proceed with this eviction, and any individuals who physically interfered with its execution only succeeded in inciting an altercation. There are legal ways to have your voices heard, and today's incident was not productive. The Detroit tiny homes initiative, a neighborhood of 25 homes built on the city's northwest side, aids some formerly homeless people, formerly incarcerated, seniors, college students, and a few CAS staff members, but all qualify as low income.
So what I'm hearing then is either she moved out of what they considered the qualifications for low income, or she was so far below it that they couldn't keep her there either.
So interestingly enough, what you're hearing is only part of the story.
Okay.
So again, for the folks who only read titles and thumbnails and immediately form an opinion without getting all the information, you may want to reconsider that, especially for the ones who continuously comment and say, I thought you were leaving YouTube.
So give me the rest of this.
Or, I thought you were getting a divorce.
So what are we missing so far on this?
CAS Community Social Services, which oversees the tiny homes development, decided not to renew Brown's lease in January of 2021. 2021.
Yep.
Arguing that she does not live at the home more than 50% of the time. Therefore, she is actually stealing from those within her community that could actually use the
Benefit from
home
it. Yeah.
100% of the time.
Yeah. Because if that means that she has some other place that she can stay, she should be staying there.
What?
As opposed to
Say what?
using the government to. I'm just saying.
Let me start over. CAS Community Social Services, which oversees the tiny homes development, decided not to renew Brown's lease in January of 2021, arguing that she does not live at the home more than 50% of the time and found her name on a lease elsewhere in the city. Brown said that she worked at the other apartment complex where her then boyfriend stayed so she could come and go as she pleased. In a statement, the Reverend Faith Fowler, executive director of CAS Community Social Services, said that Brown violated both the spirit and the conditions of the tiny homes program by choosing to make another residence her primary home. And she said the nonprofit stopped accepting rental payments from Brown in February of 2021. They did not renew, and they didn't accept her payment.
So she's been living there for free for 50% of the time for the last for over 2 years. And that's why she's complaining, because she's had a free room and board for 2 years that now is going to get taken away from her. And if her boyfriend broke up with her, she doesn't really have any reason to be in those apartments anymore.
The CAS tiny homes were never intended to serve as a second home or to sit empty, is what Fowler said in the statement. They were designed to provide poor people with safe and affordable rental housing, which would convert into home ownership after 7 years. There is no shortage of Detroiters who need this type of housing, not as an investment property, but their primary residence.
So here's my question. The people who stood for her arm's length in protest, how many of them know that she has her name on a lease somewhere else? How many of them are getting one side of the story and don't understand that she's got 2 places to be living at and whatever else?
Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear, and odds are they believed everything that she told them.
Yeah, instead of looking into it for themselves and whatever else to find out more information.
You saw her on the video with a straight face. What she said, you would think she did no wrong. You would think maybe she didn't read the agreement and she didn't understand where she violated it.
She understands where she violated it.
Now it says that a dozen...
You can't be stupid and find a way to live in a place for 2 years for free.
A dozen police vehicles were in the northwest neighborhood by the afternoon as sirens sounded. The situation grew tenser an hour later as activists shoved tires under pickup trucks attempting to haul away the dumpster full of Brown's belongings such as furniture, rugs, and plants. The bailiffs began getting confrontational, telling protesters to stop interfering with their jobs. Bailiffs were met with more aggression and ended up abandoning the dumpster and evacuating the scene alongside police at 1 p.m. Activists, sweating, remained at the scene chanting, "Good work." Brown has been preparing for removal from her home since a district judge ruled last month that she could be evicted from the spaces she's lived in since December of 2019. And the decision on March 22nd came after a 2-year court battle, and Brown was ordered to vacate within 10 days.
Why fight it so hard? To get her name in the system or in the news, to get that 15 minutes of fame, to draw attention to that, to give the Reverend and the job they're doing there a bad name, to give Detroit a bad name. I mean, I do remember I was talking about Wayne County yesterday, and I can't remember why. Now I need to go look it up, but it was kind of a big deal.
Well, let's just say it could be greed. Mm-hmm. It could be entitlement. Mm-hmm. It could be mental health issues.
It could be hoping that somebody's going to set up a GoFundMe, and now she's going to rake in a bunch of money because people feel bad that this poor woman who happened to be a veteran at some point possibly is getting evicted.
Brown told the Detroit News that the tension started at 5:30 a.m. when someone fired a gunshot at the house's back door. A gunshot hole could be seen on the door hinge. Quote, "My home defense starts at 6 a.m., so someone knew and ran up Elmhurst at 5:30 a.m. and shot into my house and got into a white SUV and drove away," was what she said. This is only the beginning. Detroit police are investigating shots fired at the home Tuesday morning after Brown submitted surveillance video. The 10th precinct has been assigned to the case. What?
Nothing.
The additional crews that arrived with the dumpster were the most aggressive towards the activists. According to Sammy Lewis, a lead organizer who has been a part of Brown's defense for more than 2 years, they were pushing, assaulting us, throwing people to the ground, and police just sat back and tolerated it, said Lewis. They would only step in to scream, "Everybody stop," but that's it.
Well, because it specifically said that it was supposed to be peaceful, and the police were told not to arrest anybody. They wanted to keep it peaceful. So the police actually did the right thing by trying to let the court-ordered bailiffs do their job by allowing the protesters to have their say and whatever else. So in my opinion, the police did well on that one by not just immediately arresting protesters and letting them have their say. And then the bailiffs did well when it got to a point where they were like, you know what? It's not worth whatever hassle this is and all this altercation, and they left. So 2 out of 3 seem to have done the correct thing. The third one thought they were doing the correct thing.
If the police weren't letting them be violent with us, I think we could have held the line. Now, activists were seen helping Brown go through the dumpster and load up a white truck as she prepared to head to her next place.
Is that the same white truck she's got in her surveillance video, shooting a gun?
Brown told the news on Monday that she wasn't sure what was next for her, but is staying with members of Detroit eviction defense for now.
Well, she's lucky that what's next for her isn't jail time.
"We are only here to keep the peace," is what the Detroit Police Department Chief Deshaun Sims said. "We are here to take police reports of those injured and, if necessary, making arrests based on the assault that takes place. We're keeping our distance. We did have to engage on a couple of occasions to separate the parties so the bailiffs could do their jobs, but we're not here in any capacity to do an eviction. This is just a sad and unfortunate situation." Sims said that she spoke to one bailiff but wasn't sure what the eviction process was. She reiterated that police were simply trying to keep the peace and not actively participate in the eviction. There were no arrests and no one required police to get EMS for them.
Look, this is kind of whatever, but when you're talking about the police are there to kind of keep an eye on and whatever, but not to intervene, it made me think of refs in basketball and sports where it used to be the refs would stay on the sideline and you could like literally come to blows. And until somebody literally screamed mama or tapped out or whatever else or asked for help, they let it go because these are adults who know exactly what they're doing, what they signed up for, what they're in for. And then now it's the point where the ref looks like somebody's going to look at somebody the wrong way and they call technical and
they
throw people
review
out
the play.
Yeah.
Much more time for ads and commercials. But the initiative was started by Fowler as a mission to help the city's most vulnerable find a path to home ownership. Residents pay $1 per square foot, with the smallest home being $225 a month, ranging up to $466 a month for the largest, plus tenants pay for electricity. Residents were told that if they paid their low-income qualified rent and followed a program by Cass Community Social Services, they would own their home after 7 years. The project's leaders are still working to determine how to transfer ownership, and 3 tenants are on pace to own their homes in September of 2024. Let's keep an eye on that one.
I was about to say the same thing.
Brown, who was formerly homeless, said nothing in her. She said nothing in her lease stated she was required to be home a certain amount of time. Loophole. And if you paint us as homeless people, nobody cares about us when something like this happens, she said, referring to the eviction. But in my opinion, I don't think you have to necessarily be there, but I think having your name on another lease.
That's where it comes into. Like, clearly, if you have the means to afford another place, then the place you are trying to be at, she's doing it because after 7 years, they'll give her the home, and that's the cheapest way to get a home. I mean, that's all there is to it.
And she knows how many people will be willing to pay for that.
Yeah.
Think about it like this. We bought our second house in 2014. And was it 2014?
Or 13.
14, I don't know. It was a nice house.
It was a nice house.
It was brand new. Mm-hmm. Very excited. Mm-hmm. We moved in. Mm-hmm. And then what?
What do you mean, and then what?
What happened after we moved in? We paid for this house. We bought it. Uh-huh. Had a mortgage.
We made monthly payments on it, and we stayed in it, and we lived in it?
We went to work.
Oh, I was like, wait, what?
We went to work. And I remember the first weekend after moving in, after having worked the week, going back to work thinking, wait, I was only at my new house for a few hours a day during the week. Mm-hmm. And then on the weekend, we had to do everything we had to do to get caught up to go back to work. We did not stay in our house 50% of the time.
No, but we only had the one house.
But the simple fact of the matter is that 50%? Uh-huh. Who could do that?
I don't know if they mean 50% of the time, meaning at night. Because, I mean, if you're gone the day, then you should be there at night. And if you're gone at night, you should be there during the day most of the time. The times you sleep, take showers.
We didn't even get 8 hours of sleep. So,
yeah, that's true.
You know, the point I'm trying to make is I don't think she had to be there. Mm-hmm. I think it's the
lease that has the most to do with it. But they may not have had that in their clause, and maybe there is the thing about time spent there in the clause.
So she says that her name is no longer attached to the other apartment, and I can only imagine that this is because has since been removed since January of 2021, where they decided to not renew. Mm-hmm. So now it's after the fact. It's retroactive. It's too late. They've already decided what they're going to do. Now, I didn't know how they determined how often I was home until they started asking about the security alarms installed in our homes and why I wasn't setting the alarm more often. And then I knew that they were using our alarm data to track our comings and goings, Brown said. It doesn't make this okay for us to be under these circumstances. Interestingly enough, another video coming is how your information and data is being tracked by your grocery stores. So that's coming up.
Now, when you first started this, you said that those homes are meant for homeless, people who have had felonies and are having hard times getting other places, the elderly, people who, in my opinion, in certain circumstances, it's beneficial for the owners of these places to know when they're there and when they aren't there. If there is a break-in.
Well, you're right. It's their property. Mm-hmm. It's their asset.
Yeah.
They own it.
Yeah. Well, just think about it. If you lived in a gated community, they know when you go in and out of the community, when you put in your code, when you scan your fob, any of those things, nothing changes there.
Even your employer knows for the most part, in most instances with the key fob to get in or punching in for the clock.
Getting on your computer in the office, whatever it is.
But at the end of the day, it's their asset. They can track it however they want.
Exactly.
They need to protect their interests.
Yeah.
You can't go buy a car and not put insurance on it and have a loan on it. You know, like this is normal.
Yeah.
Cass community spokesperson Marcy Hayes said Monday that an addendum placed on the leases after the first year required residents to live in the homes a majority of the time and had been added at the request of board members. No one was tracking home security systems, is what Hayes said. While living in a tiny home, Brown said that she questioned the process of the path to ownership and has said the eviction is retaliation against her. During a hearing last month on the motions Brown filed in court, 36th District Court Judge Sean Jock said that is not the case. Brown has attempted to say that her lease was not renewed out of retaliation. However, the case law is clear when it comes to mouth-to-mouth I'm sorry. I don't know where I got mouth to mouth.
I don't know either.
Month to month tenancy, which is what this case became after the lease expired. Retaliation is not a defense to extend summary proceedings. And that was really smart on the owner's part to move to a month to month term so that they could leverage their legal ability to evict. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, number one, tiny houses are expensive, so don't get it twisted. Number two, no good deed goes unpunished. So ultimately, number three, you're going to see less organizations and people trying to help other people.
I agree.
While also seeing more people trying to take advantage of situations that ultimately harms the people who could really use it.
And I agree.
There we have it.
Yep.